Alright, Assalamu alaikum. This is Mr. Islam Answers back with another video refutation. In this video, we're going to be dealing with a claim that has been around for a while. I've seen it, over the years since I've been doing debates. It comes up, here and there every once in a while. And it is the claim that supposedly the Quran says that all Muslims are going to hell. Okay? So we're going to take a look at the argument, take a look at the verse that they give, but demonstrate and show you that the verse doesn't even say the word Muslim at all in it. And even when we examine the context, it further refutes their claim. But of course, this is what the anti-Islamists, the anti-Muslims do. A lot of times they'll give a verse by itself isolated, and many times the verse itself does not support their claim. But further is that the context, when you read the verses that come before or after the verse that they give, it further refutes their claim, and they could have avoided being refuted and embarrassed if they had just read the other verses before or after. But let's go ahead and take a look at it, and we're going to refute the claim that supposedly the Quran says that all Muslims are going to hell. So let's get into it. Okay, so here's the verse that they give. It is chapter 19, verse 71 of the Quran. It reads on its own, "There is not one of you but shall approach it. That is a fixed ordinance of your Lord." Now on the surface of it, again, when you read it, it doesn't say Muslim. It doesn't say there is not one of you Muslims but shall approach it, or that shall be thrown in it, or whatever. So how do they take this and get that it's saying that all Muslims are thrown into hell? Well, of course, most people who are intelligent would realize, okay, well, we need to read the context, right? So we can find out who is the you that is being spoken of. When it says there is not one of you but shall approach it, who is that you? Who's that speaking to? Is it talking to Muslims? We need to find that out, right? So an intelligent person would read the context, read the verses before it, or perhaps the answer is given in the verses after it. But either way, you would realize that on its own, that verse doesn't say much to let you know who it's speaking to. So let's do that, everyone. Let's go and examine the verses before it and see. And again, even in the Arabic, right? In the Arabic, the word Muslim is not there. It doesn't say Muslims in Arabic. So even if you read the Arabic, it doesn't say there is not one of you in Arabic who, is as Muslim. It just says you. So you're only left with the choice of having to read the verses before or after. So let's do that, and you'll clearly see that their claim is completely false. Let's do that now. So in order for us to see the context, we have to go back a few verses to about verse 66. The context of these verses begin at verse 66. And as you see here, let us read it. It says, "Yet the human being continues to ask, when I am dead, will I be brought out alive again?" So we see very clearly that the context of this verse is referring to all mankind, all humanity is being spoken to. The you that is being spoken to is all humanity. But even then, as we go further, we'll see that it's not even addressing that all humanity will have to go to hellfire. As we read further on, let us now proceed to read the further verses, and you'll see that yes, it begins off addressing humanity, all human beings, not Muslim. And then the verses that follow, that lead up to verse 71, will then specify who among humanity it is addressing. And you will see that it's not even referring to all humanity when we get to verse 71. So it's addressing humanity as a whole at verse 66. And then when we go on, you'll see that it begins to now further address a specific portion of humanity. Let's take a look. The verses continue, verse 67. "Does the human being," once again, you see it's addressing human beings, not Muslims, "does the human being not remember that we created him before when he was nothing?" So again, as you see, notice it's leading towards verse 71. And who's being addressed? The human being. All humanity is being addressed as we lead up to verse 67. These verses are not verses that were speaking to Muslims themselves by themselves. It is addressing all humanity. Let's continue. So now we get to verse 68. "So by your Lord, we will surely round them up along with the devils, and then we shall bring them around hell on their knees. So again, surely round them. Who's the them? As we just saw from the two verses ahead, it is speaking again to humanity. Humanity, human beings, not Muslims in particular. Okay? So we will surely round them, the humanity, along with the devils. And then we will bring them around hell. Again, so it says around hell. I looked at most of the translations. They all say around hell. They're not being brought into hell. They're being brought around it on their knees. So nobody's in the hellfire as of yet. This is a humanity being brought around it on their knees. All right? Let's continue and go further. Verse 69 continues, then we will drag from every group of them the ones most defiant to the most compassionate. Okay, now here's where things get more specific now, right? Here's where things get more specific now. Again, you still see that it hasn't addressed Muslims at all. The entire time, humanity as a whole was being addressed. But now a specific portion of humanity is being addressed. As you see here, it makes it clear. Then we will drag from every group of them. The them, as you have seen, has been human beings, humanity. So from every group among humanity, the ones that have been the most defiant to the most compassionate are dragged out from humanity. Right? So humanity as a whole is being addressed at first, but then it says from every group from among humanity, the ones who are the most defiant, they'll be dragged out. They'll be pulled out from the rest of humanity. The most defiant ones, you see, will be pulled out. Let's continue. And on to verse 70, it says, and certainly we know best those who are most worthy of being burned therein. Okay. All right. Now we're getting to the heart of the matter. Now Allah speaking more specifically. He just clarified that first he was talking all humanity. Then he breaks it down and says now he's addressing the most rebellious, the most defiant from among humanity. And now he makes it clear. And certainly he says he knows best those who are the most worthy of being burnt therein. So now you see he's addressing the sinners, the evildoers now. See? He's clarified even more that from among humanity, he's now addressing that he knows from among humanity those who are the most worthy of being burned therein in the hellfire. So again, you see, it wasn't talking to Muslims at all. It was addressing all humanity. So now when we go to verse 71, we see that verse 71 was talking about the evildoers from among humanity. The haters, the anti-Islamists, the anti-Muslims could have avoided this claim, this false claim of theirs, if they had just let the Quran speak for itself and read the context. You see? And that's what I'm into here. So I want any haters that watch this to understand that. That I know they're going to say, oh, but the tafsir and the hadith and look, the Quran is clear already. These verses are clear already who it's talking to. So you don't even really have to go to those sources because the Quran already speaks clearly for itself, and your claim is refuted right there. And like I said, because I know what they'll say, they'll try to use the tafsirs and some hadiths or whatever. But even then, the scholars say that still, even verse 71 is not saying that all Muslims go to hell. They explain it that it's saying that that people will be passing over, and even then it shows that all humanity, that people will there's a bridge or something that goes over the hellfire, and the good people, the righteous, etc., they'll pass over the bridge, right? They'll pass over the bridge over hell and be able to enter into paradise, whereas evildoers and sinners and such will fall off the bridge as they attempt to pass the bridge or pass over the bridge. They will fall, or they'll be grabbed, from below and pulled down into the hellfire. So even then, even if you do want to try to make your argument on the tafsirs or hadiths or whatever, the scholars still say that it's still not saying that everyone is going to hell. It's saying that people will pass over it, pass over the bridge. The bridge is over the hell. It's not in it. So if you pass over the bridge, you're not going to hell. You're passing over the bridge. And if you pass over it, you enter, you go free, and you can enter into paradise. Whereas evildoers are dragged down and pulled down off the bridge into the hellfire. So even then, even the scholars and tafsirs and things still do not say what the haters say, that, oh, all Muslims go to hell. They don't even say that anyway. But again, the verses from the Quran itself, the Quran says it's clear. I like letting the Quran speak for itself. And the Quran speaking for itself, as I've shown you when you read the verses in context, shows you that it is not addressing Muslims at all. It is speaking to all humanity. And even from humanity, it is addressing, as it says, the most defiant evil ones from among humanity. That's clear. So taking it back to verse 71, after now reading the context and the Quran speaking on its own, it's clear that when you get to the part where it says, there is not one of you but shall approach it, as Allah specified, the you that's being spoken to is the most defiant ones from among humanity. Right? There is not one of you, the defiant ones, the sinners, the evildoers, but shall approach it. That is a fixed ordinance from your Lord. So now continuing on to the verse after 71, verse 72 says, then we will save those who were righteous, and we will leave the wicked in it on their knees. So as you see, none of the verses says that it was addressing Muslims. None of them. As you see, starting in the context, starting in verse 66, it was addressing human beings or humanity in general. And then it goes even further to clarify that from amongst humanity in general, the evildoers, the sinners, the ones who are defiant to God, Allah, they will be dragged out from among humanity, and they are the ones that will be brought to the hellfire. Right? It's them that for sure, all of them, they will be brought to the hellfire. And then verse 72 says that the righteous from amongst humanity, they will be the ones who will be saved. See? They will be saved from that experience. Allah will save them from that and leave the wicked there to be put into the hellfire. So it's very clear. The Quran is clear. It stands on its own. I've said this many times. The Quran is clear. And the fact the Quran itself says it's clear, and indeed it is. Remember, everyone, I want haters and Muslims alike to understand. The scholars told you, and the Quran says it itself, that the Quran itself gives itself the best tafsir. They say the best tafsir of the Quran is the Quran of itself, using other verses of the Quran to clarify other verses of the Quran. That is the best method of doing tafsir. And it says that right in the Quran itself, that the Quran itself, Allah Himself, gives the best explanation. Okay? So that's clear. And hopefully this video will be a service to the Muslims to use it to refute. And if there's any sincere people who are not Muslim who heard this claim and were looking for clarification, I pray that this video will assist you in getting the correct information just the same. Alright? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.